So this is how to market your book when you don't know how or don't want to. Okay. Lesson 101. If technology is not your thing, don't try to start there, because even when you know technology, it's going to mess with you. Okay, let's talk about marketing. This is what I thought would happen, and what a lot of people think is going to happen. They think, I've written this book. It's going to be a good book. Everybody's going to need it. Everybody's going to want it. And boom, I'm going to publish it out there, and it's just going to take over the world, right? Okay, if it's not working, I don't know why it's not working on Zoom. I'm not gonna pay attention to the tech stuff right now. I'm just going to keep going through, because otherwise it's super duper distracting. So I'm recording it. It might be because I'm sharing my screen that you can't go in there, but I'm recording, and we will make sure everybody gets a recording of this presentation, okay? So thought that we often think we're going to put out this amazing book, everybody's going to want it and love it, and that, you know, we'll have more time with our family, and we'll be going on vacations, and I don't know, we'll buy a farm, we're going to do whatever, because everybody's going to be buying our books and everything's just going to be amazing and wonderful, right? But that is often not what happens. All right, we're going to get into that too. We write for many different reasons. We write to change the world, to share our knowledge or insights, to help others or entertain others, or do all kinds of amazing things. Let's see here. Let's see. And you know, we either want to entertain people, we want to maybe add some extra revenue to our life. We write because we just love to write. We write because we want to share our skills with people, or help other people, or entertain with people. But the marketing part is usually the part that people struggle with the most, unless you just are one of those people that absolutely loves and adores marketing and fall into it very, very natural. There's so much information out there, and you have probably tried many things and failed. But I want to tell you that it's not your fault, because this is what happens. There's a lot of people out there trying to tell you that there's a cookie cutter marketing approach you should take, or you absolutely have to do this, or you absolutely have to do this. And they're trying to help you market a product to an audience that they don't understand, to a market that they don't understand. They're throwing out general marketing tactics that might work if you're selling a water bottle, or if you have a brick and mortar company, but may not be what you need, because each one of our books has a very specific audience who have specific needs, wants, and expectations, right? And the crazy part is that depending on what your goal is, what you're trying to write your book for, which audience you are working to, all of those things, you may or may not, like your tactics could be absolutely 100% different than the person sitting right next to you who's marketing a book. So there's no cookie cutter approach. There are literally a million different ways you can skin a cat. So it gets skin this cat. So it gets very, very confusing when someone is telling you this is the way you have to do it, and this is what you need to be doing, and you need to spend money here, or do this or do that. So the problem is there's too much information, and a lot of it is teaching you tactics that aren't going to work for most of us. And the other problem is that most of us don't realize when we write and publish a book that we've just become an author entrepreneur. We love writing. We want to do the writing thing all here on here. We want to be a part of that, but we have no idea how to actually market ourselves or run a business. And so we go from wanting to do this wonderful thing and have this wonderful book out there to share our experience, to share our content, to share all of this stuff. And then we realize that what we have to be doing is learning how to grow and build a business and all of these other things. All right. So what is our goal here today? Well, our goal, first of all, is to try not to get too frustrated by all of the crazy things that are happening on technology. That's goal number one. Goal number two is to put put out some basic expectations on what is realistic for you. I think that one of the biggest problems that we have is that we don't understand expectations, and we just set some that are absolutely not in line with what we should have for ourselves, right? I'm trying to see if I can pull the comments up on in case. So you know, we want to look at some core areas that we need to understand. We want to look at some basic marketing tips for people who have never marketed before that you can do without feeling highly overwhelmed, without spending a ton of money. I want to provide some different examples from some different genres, and and I'm going to give you some inexpensive tools that can help you and some ways that you can market without feeling icky. Because at the end of the day, I think that this is a big part of the problem, is that people just feel super uncomfortable marketing because of whatever reason. Well, I guess I've been really lucky because experiences in my life, I've done different MLMs, I've done different things like that, sold Jamberry, sold Pampered Chef, sold all of these things. So I got the opportunity to really learn how to put myself out there, and got very used to getting uncomfortable and being told no a lot. And then that helped me further on in life as well, and it has definitely helped me in my marketing endeavors. Okay, for those of you who are just popping in, we are just getting started into our book marketing webinar, and I've had a pretty fun and crazy time with some of the technology. We are live in 2 places. I really can't see comments, but I do promise you that I'm going to come back around at the end and answer any questions that are happening. So please bear with me as I try not to totally lose it. Ironically, it is St. Patrick's Day. I opened this up on Ninja Webinar by saying, may we all have the best of luck with everything that's happening. And then Webinar Ninja down on me. So we are pressing through. Okay. So these are the things we're going to cover. Let's be super duper real and clear. The odds of most of us becoming super bestsellers, Stephen King's, J.K. Rowling, all of those things are small. Okay, that needs to be super clear to everyone. It's the blow up overnight successes like that, the household names, those are small, those are far and few between when you think of all the people that are writing books and out there doing this thing. However, that does not mean that we cannot not all achieve success with our books. We just have to set expectations that are realistic and in line with what is possible based on our audience size, our budget, the need for our book, and all of those things. Okay. So my very first book was Sunshine After the Storm, a survival guide for the grieving mother. And at no point in time did I anticipate that this particular book would be a bestseller, sell millions and millions of copies. When I first put it out there, the goal wasn't for it to sell anything. I wanted to be able to give this book to mothers who needed it. And that was pretty much it, right? So your goals are going to play a huge role in how many books are selling, and you have to keep those goals in line. You also have to remember that while 1 in 4 mothers will lose a pregnancy or have a child die, like not everybody in the world is going to go out and buy this book, right? It's not going to be the same level of intensity like a book that just goes viral and off the shelves. Like think The Hunger Games, think Harry Potter, think 50 Shades of Grey, think any of these books that have made a really big, loud noise in our community. Like those are books that a lot of different people are going to read and try, but not every book, not every genre has that same even capacity to get to that point, right? So there's things that you have to understand. You have to know and understand what's even going to be possible with the type of book you are writing. And then you have to keep in mind that numbers are everything. And if you don't have an audience, nobody's just going to accidentally stumble upon and find your book. So Keep that in mind. Nancy, I see that you're watching. Can you, by any chance, send an email to everybody who registered for this webinar and let them know that we are now on Facebook? I don't know if that's possible to download and do that yet, but if it is, that might help. So I'm really sorry about the issues with the webinar. Hopefully this is going to be fixed by the time we do our next webinar on Friday, or I may just do it someplace else. So, okay. So that's important to note from the get-go, is that your expectations need to be set really clearly from the beginning on what you as an author can achieve, okay? That does not mean that you cannot grow and expand, that you cannot do things to get bigger, but I want you to think about all of these situations where you think they're overnight successes. E.L. James, I talk about a lot with 50 Shades of Grey, because it was just such an interesting case study. Like, to the outside eye, it looks like this indie author just blew up on the scene with this book that spent, I don't know, 36 weeks on the bestseller list. I mean, it was ridiculous. It broke all kinds of records and everything. And if you don't know anything about the background on that story, you don't know that E.L. James was writing in fan fiction sites and building her platform and sharing her work and growing this audience, to the point that by the time a publisher found her, she was creating buzz around this book that she had self-published. And by the time a publisher found the book and was like, oh my gosh, we have to publish this, she already had a fan base of 5 million people. So it was not an overnight success. It was years of writing and doing the work and getting there. There are no shortcuts. There are no magic pills. If anyone tells you anything that's different from that, they are lying to you, and you should not give them any money, because it's just, I've seen this too many launches, too many times, too many books, too many different genres. And every time, even though I said there's lots of different ways to get there and lots of ways to get to success, there are a few things that are always a hard rule. And that is, you have to have numbers. You have to have people have to know about your book. And Oprah is not going to just magically find your book. Now, if someone like Oprah does somehow find your book and she tweets about it, then that's going to be a shortcut to success. But to get to Oprah, there are like lots of layers of work, okay? But there's good news too, and that is that it's possible to do these things. There are options for growing your platform, steps that you can take, things you can do to have success with your book. But you must not expect that just because you published a book, people are going to find it and it's going to go viral and people are going to love it and want it, okay? All right, so I think I've nailed that in. Now, who am I? I've been yapping at you for a few minutes here. We've had a fun time rolling from one webinar platform to another and trying to test out some different things. Some of you are brand new to me. Some of you only found this webinar because someone shared about it or because it popped up on your Facebook feed. I'm Alexa Bigworth. I started off, well, let me just tell you what I do now. I'm an author. I'm a co-author. I'm a best-selling USA Today best-selling author and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. I've been doing this for almost a decade now. I am an accidental entrepreneur, publishing entrepreneur, basically. And I have spent the better part of the last decade learning everything that I can about the publishing industry, the whole gamut, from how to start writing the book to beyond launch and everything in between. I operate a hybrid press. I self-publish. I help other people self-publish. And we have a traditional press. And I have made it my mission in life to learn everything that I can about the publishing industry, because you have to if you're going to be successful in it. Or if you're not learning all of it, then you have to have a publishing partner who is learning all of these things and sharing that knowledge and information with you. So I'm an accidental entrepreneur into this. My background was in Air Force intelligence and counterterrorism and homeland security. I had small children at that time while I was working, and I decided to become a stay-at-home mom. And shortly after, we found out that we were pregnant with our third and surprise bonus baby, identical twins. A very, very long story short, they became super ill. They had a disease that impacts identical twins, and they were born early, and one of them passed away 2 days after they were born because of complications. And I took to writing as a form of healing. So first I started blogging, and I started doing all the blogging things. And when I started writing, at first it was just for me and private, and I wrote under a fake name. And then I decided that I really liked what I was doing. And eventually, as I started writing more on the topic of grief and supporting others and awareness and all these types of things, I decided to compile a book, Sunshine After the Storm, a survival guide for the grieving mother. And I'd always wanted to be a writer from the time I was a small child. But this book I approached completely on a goal-based passion project. I had a message that I wanted to share with an audience who needed it. And marketing did not factor into that one bit. I never intended on selling the book. The whole point was to get the book into the hands of mothers who needed it, period. So, excuse me. What happened was I found that I really enjoyed the process of learning how to publish a book. And so I also had other children. I was blogging about parenting and writing articles for parenting publications and all these types of things. And I wound up deciding to do another book called Lose the Cape: Realities for Busy Modern Moms and Strategies to Survive. And when I published that second book, people began to take note. And started to ask me, how are you doing this? What are you doing? What's going on? And all of that kind of stuff. So this business just kind of built itself as more people started coming to me and asking for help and support in their journey. I developed a business around them. First as a self-publishing assist, then we started growing the publishing houses. Then we branched out with the children's book publishing house, Purple Butterfly Press. In between, helping all of those people publish their books and interviewing. In that journey, I found that I really enjoyed teaching the process of all of this. And that's when I started these summits. So this year was the 5th online conference that we ran. So I've interviewed over 200, probably close to 300 authors, book marketers, editors, publishing experts, all of that kind of stuff. So I've really dug in to learn the industry and to learn what's going on. So that's my family, and the little one in the pink polka dotty heart dress is my surviving twin. She's 8.5 and has no residual issues despite being 1 pound 10 ounces when she was born. But I enjoyed being able to build a business from my home so that I could be home with them and still work and do things that supported them. So the journey has not always been easy. Let me tell you, in this road to figure out how to publish well and how to market, I have made a lot of mistakes. I have spent a lot of time, and I have invested a lot of money. So, and I've also found some pretty big scams out there. So in this journey now, it's my goal to help others kind of shortcut that process and provide some steps that hopefully help you avoid some of the pitfalls that I have fallen into. One of the cool things about the process, though, is that we are always trying to get better at it through self-improvement, through education, through participating in groups and organizations and getting training and all these things. But we also live it through our authors that we publish, both through the self-publishing assist and through the publishing house. Every time we apply the tools that we're learning to make each one better and better and better and better. We always take what worked. We always take what didn't work, and we look at them and we try and figure out, was it because of the tool that we used? Was it because of the timeline that we used? Was it because that approach wasn't good for that genre in particular? Was it because the author didn't engage at all? I'm not taking all the blame. As the author, you have to realize, if you don't do your work, why am I going to want to buy your book more than you want people to know about your book, you know? So what we do is we take all of our lessons learned, and every time we launch a book, we apply what we learned the last time, and it gets better and better and better. We're always learning, always testing, and that's just what you will also do as an author entrepreneur. Oops. Okay, here's what I want you to know. Despite the fact that I told you at the very beginning, there are a million different ways to approach your marketing, and that is true. And it's totally going to depend on your genre, your experience, your audience size, your ability to do different types of things, and what you are willing to get out there and do, your level of comfort in speaking or getting out on podcasts or interviews or all of these kinds of things. All of those things are going to vary greatly. But the three things that I know hold true regardless of any of those things is that relationships matter and you must build them. Audience size matter and you must grow it. And it is a long game. It is a long game. You're not just going to go out the door and put your book on Amazon and boom, everybody's going to find your book. And funnily enough, in the very beginning, that's exactly what we did. We would finish a book, we would get it laid out, we would have typeset, beautiful cover, all those things, sales page ready, and our launch day would basically be the day, like we would be finishing that book right up to the day of launch, which for some things is okay. As I mentioned with Sunshine After the Storm, like there was no marketing buildup, there was no plan to be a bestseller on Amazon with this book. There was only the goal of getting the book into the hands of the people who needed it. So I didn't need this massive pre-launch campaign. But I've also learned along the way that while that is also true, I missed a lot of opportunities to do that, because even if it's a passion project that we are just trying to help other people, if we are trying to have an impact with our book and we want it to get as big of an impact as possible, there are things that need to happen in the timeline, and you need to give yourself time. Not only that, things can happen. We've, over the course of the last multiple years, have found that sometimes we get a print proof and the font doesn't look like we thought it would, or lo and behold, in this one particular font we were using in our books, for some reason when it printed through Amazon, the D's in italics were just a bubble, and that was it. And it didn't show up that way in the preview, didn't show up that way in the PDF. We would have never known that. So there are things that you need to add into your timeline. So basically, we've started, making sure that there's always a 3 to 6 month window, largely for marketing and audience buildup and doing all the things that you need to do to get your hands into people, to get your book into the hands of people. We found that that we needed time. So now, from the time the book is final, and by final, I mean I can order a print proof and put it in my hands. A minimum, I don't like to do less than 6 months to launch, but a minimum of 3 months to do all those other things. Okay, so let me get into these. These are the 3 areas that we are going to focus on today. Now, this is called Book Marketing 101, and it's supposed to be easy things that you can do, right? But these 3 things, I'm telling you, they can be easy or they can be difficult, but they are necessary. So whether you're taking, once you get your audience identified and once you start building those relationships, the marketing part truly does become easier. But you have to know who you are marketing to. So these are the 3 areas that I'm going to walk through. Then we're going to talk about some tools that you can use to help you do these things and some resources that I have. Okay, so hang with me as we keep going in there, and I will come back and answer questions in just a minute. Okay. I'm sure if you have been trying to market a book, you can appreciate this picture and this poor little boy just grabbing his head and like, oh my gosh, what is happening here? In a lot of times, book marketing experts will tell you that this is what you need to do. You need to be everywhere. You need to be on Facebook. You need to be on Twitter. You need to be doing email newsletters, and you need to be going to book signing events, and you need to be running promo ads and blogging and giveaways and blah, blah, blah. And these are all great things to do. And they are all things that I recommend that you do, but you don't have to start by doing all of these things. And oh, by the way, if your target audience is never on Twitter, then you should not waste a moment on Twitter. I do have people, is anyone else experiencing an issue with sound? I do have people who will occasionally set up accounts everywhere across the board, just because you never know who's going to want to follow you on a certain place. You know, somebody that is following you may want to utilize Twitter. Okay. So it's good to have those accounts set up, but just because you have a Twitter account and maybe auto post to it doesn't mean that you need to, spend a whole lot of time being there. Okay. So just know that this does not have to be your reality. And while you do need to do some things, if you haven't figured out who your audience is, none of this stuff is going to matter, because you're just going to be shooting. You're going to be trying to, like, you ever seen somebody try to go fishing with a spear, where you're just like stabbing in the water and hope that you get something? Or I like the expression, throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing if it sticks. And that's not the way that you want to do your marketing. You don't want to overcomplicate it, especially if you're new, don't know where to start with marketing, and are already feeling completely overwhelmed by all the things. You will find yourself in analysis paralysis. And what you really need to do is to take some time spending, just thinking about who your book is for, is the number one best thing that I can give you in terms of marketing advice. Because if you're not clear on who needs to buy your book and where you can engage to them and what speaks to their needs, then it's going to be like trying to sell chicken nuggets to a person that only eats tacos. They're not going to want it. You can't do cookie cutter marketing, and you cannot blanket market. Even with my book that has a very clear niche for grieving mothers, not everybody's going to want that book. And we found over time that it speaks to some audiences more than others. So you have to be super, super, super clear on who you are trying to get in front of. And I want to give some examples of a couple of people that I have worked with, just to put this in place so you see what I'm talking about. So Laura's written a book that's called How to Raise Respectful Parents. And she was really struggling with sales. She was published by a small traditional publisher who was not really doing anything to help her with the marketing. And she'd been kind of stuck where she was. And one of the problems that she was having was that she wasn't really focused on who she was trying to sell her book to. She had a couple of different audiences, but when we spent some time and really thought, who is your primary audience and how can you be doing things to get in front of them? She identified that who this book was really most suited for was single moms trying to raise children and trying to be able to communicate effectively with them. So when she was able to shift some of the things that she was doing, it then allowed her to figure out what podcast she should be trying to get on, where she be trying to do webinars, what kind of group should she be doing? Who should she be targeting her ads at? And everything became much clearer to her. While her book can also be marketed to other audiences, once she really got clear on that first audience and working through all the different things that she could be doing to provide value to that particular avatar. An avatar is kind of like the description of the person who's going to buy your book. She's stayed in the top 10 in her category since then and is consistently selling books. And she's not doing it in let me take this book and put it in front of single moms and tell you need to buy it. She's doing other things to provide value to them that allows them to realize that this is a tool that they need. She's doing a free consulting call with people and talking to them about her program and all of these things. And book sales are trickling down. It's a trickle down effect because of that. Shelly is another one of my favorite examples. Shelly is a hardcore DIYer who came into me and was like, I want to pay for 30 minutes. I want you to tell me everything you can about these things, and then I'm going to go and implement. And she launched her book. Some of you might remember Shelly from the workshops during the Women in Publishing Summit, but not long after she launched her book, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and all of her efforts just like squashed and stopped. And so when she healed, thankfully, she's cancer-free and healthy again. When she came back with a vengeance, like, now what do I do? I've lost all this time. How do I get moving forward? She was looking at investing in some business courses and doing this and doing that. And I said, don't spend $3,000 on a business course. You don't need somebody to teach you business right now. You know business. You've got that. You don't need somebody doing that. What you need is to get in front of the audience that you have defined as busy moms who want to feed their children healthy meals and they don't want to spend all day cooking. So they want to be providing clean recipes in under 15 minutes a day. That's a very clear audience. Now find the people, find the ways to get in front of that very specific audience and to her, and build your email list was basically what I said of those people. And she did. And she wound up booking out her entire January doing interviews, live interviews, doing speaking engagements, doing all these things with that very clear focus because she knew exactly who she was talking to. And guess what? She's launching book club things. She's launching, she's seeing more book sales because of these events. Like, it is happening for her because instead of trying to do all the things, she focused on one thing, which was a very clear message to that very clear target audience. She knew what those people needed, and she provided a tool for them that answered their needs, that provided the solution to their problem. And, you know, don't think to yourself, okay, well, I'm writing a fiction book, how can I do this? Because it applies across the board. Your method of doing it, what your value is going to provided to them is going to be different based on what that audience is. And that is why knowing who your audience is and growing those relationships with them very early on is so important. Because if you're publishing a fantasy book, for example, you need to know what those people are looking for in books, what they want more of, what they like, what they dislike, what the norms are. And as you start interacting with them and engaging with them and building those relationships, not only with the readers, but with other authors who do that same thing, you start to see what it is they like. And Angela J. Ford gave a great presentation on her outside of the box marketing methods that she does geared towards people who like those kinds of things. And you get to know the things that your audience likes when you spend the time building the relationships with them. So if you're building your audience on Facebook, actually responding to comments on your Facebook page, actually talking back to them, going into forums where those readers like to hang out, and instead of pushing your book, just talking to them, finding out, asking questions, responding to their comments, providing value if they ask a question, or, you know, I like this type of book. Does anybody know if there's any new ones out on blah, blah, blah? And you can say, actually, I just did a new newsletter swap with my friend over here, and she's launching her book. It's exactly this thing. You know, when you build that kind of trust with people, they follow you, they like you, and they're not feeling like you're just shoving your stuff on them. The last thing you want to be is that person who every time somebody makes a comment about anything, your response is, well, I wrote a book about it and here's my book link. If they're specifically asking for a resource, that's cool. But if they're just posting on a group and they're like, guys, I'm really struggling with my toddler. You know, he's driving me crazy. I'm losing my mind. You know, you don't want to be the person that's like, oh my gosh, I wrote the book about how to deal with toddlers, and plug in your Amazon link. That's not the way you build trust. That's the way you get people to say, ew, that's gross. But if you're like, hey, I totally get it. I had a 2-year-old who every time I turned around destroyed our entire house. He painted our walls with chapstick. He, you know, all this stuff was happening. He, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you like start building that camaraderie. Then now all of a sudden you're building a relationship, and that person is much more likely to wind up asking questions, or maybe clicking on your Facebook profile to see, or maybe friending you and then seeing your Facebook author page that says you wrote a book on it. Or, you know, you can even go the next step and say, you know what, I feel your pain. I was there. Would you like a PDF copy of the book that I wrote that might give you some pointers and tips and all of that, and do that for them as a first-time author. It's really important to create those relationships. Okay, so that's the relationship building part, and it's twofold. Okay, so just recap on it. It's knowing who needs your book, whether it be a children's book. You know, who needs that book? Is it teachers that need new content to share, librarians, moms, homeschooling moms? And then where are they, and how do you create legitimate relationships with them so that they are interested in following you and being a part of your community and trying out your book. And I am a full believer that as a first-time author, the best thing you can ever do is give away your book in its entirety. I know there are some people that'll say all you need to do is give a sample chapter, sample this. But I can tell you that we've seen much, much better results when we've given away just the full book. And we're going to talk about this a little bit in audience size in just a second, but think about it. If you are looking through your Facebook feed and you see an ad for an author or a book, unless it's like the perfect solution to what you've been looking for, the odds are very, very low that you're just going to click buy, right? You might wander over to the Amazon page and look at the description. If the description isn't done well, you're going to start looking at the also bots or the sponsored, other sponsored books, or people also bought as an also bot underneath, and you're going to start clicking through, right? So the odds of a brand new author that you've never heard of ever in your life and is asking you to buy their new book that has 2 reviews on Amazon and it's $16.99. It's very slim, very, very, very slim. I'm telling you from a marketing perspective, like it's just not likely. So when you get over that hump by offering people the opportunity to try your book, there's a lot of people that will download it and never read it. That's just the reality. But there are some people that will try it in a way that they would have never purchased that book before, and they will share it with their friends. They'll leave a review. They will go do things for you that you would have never gotten if you were just trying to sell your book. So I know it's painful when you've invested time and money and energy to give away your book for free, but I assure you it is gold in itself if done right, if followed up properly, and all of those things. All right, so let's talk about audience size, because this is the next thing where people make a mistake. Oops, I just talked through all of that, but didn't go through my slides. So I will be sending out the slides in case anyone knows. So just more on the relationship, more on why it's important to know the who, more on, you have to identify your audience, and think like a reader. And I talked about Shelley and what she did with her book. She made sure she got in front of the audience that needed her solution. Okay, so the application of this is matching up the who plus the what plus the where plus the why. You have to find out what matters to the audience, where they are, get in front of them with things that interest them. So I'm going to go all the way back to my slide at the very beginning about realistic expectations. And once again, I'm going to say, this is not easy. This is not, okay, it's not difficult in terms of just mind-blowing, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this kind of work. But it is difficult in terms of it's time consuming and it requires consistency and constant effort. It's not just going to happen for you. So if all of this, you're like, I don't want to do this amount of work, that's fine. That is 100% fine. You have 2 options at that point. You can pay somebody else to try and do it for you, but I'm going to talk to you about some examples in a minute that show how important author involvement is in this whole process. Or you can decide, I've written a book, check, I'm done. It did what it wanted it to do. I can say I'm a published author. I can use it to, promote myself or whatever you want to use it for, but you shouldn't expect bestseller status. You shouldn't expect sales if you're not out there doing the work, showing up, and continuing to provide value. And that value is going to vary depending on the genre. For some people, the value is they just love to read and they want to be entertained. I was talking to somebody who said they read between 2 and 10 novellas a day, like romance books. So they just fly through them. That's what they love doing. They just love reading. That is the value to them, finding something that they can get easily, read it, they like it, and matches their expectations, and on they go. So when you think about people and interests, some examples like children's books, who is your who? Your fantasy fiction, who is your who? Self-help, who is your who? Like, you have to determine that. And not all children's books are going to be all children or all teachers or all mothers. I'm going to talk about a book that we published recently called Hi, It's Me, I Have ADHD. It's very geared towards children that have ADHD, plus their parents, plus their teachers, plus all their caregivers. So, fantasy fiction. Are you the Lord of the Rings type fantasy fiction, or are you something more modern and whatever? There's going to be differences in there. Self-help. Oh my goodness. Are you trying to lose weight, or are you trying to build a house? I mean, those are not going to be the same. They might be the same audience, but generally not. So you have to know your who. Then you can figure out the what, the where, the why. This is why, as my little note down here, why marketers get paid really big bucks and why they screw up a lot. Because even if they're trying to apply a cookie cutter solution to a very specific market, they're not going to get it. They're going to be selling chicken nuggets to the kid who only eats a taco, and it doesn't work. All right, now caught up with my slides here. The size does matter when it comes to your audience. Now, if you've already published your book and you're panicking because you're like, I didn't do the work, I don't have 1,000 people on my list, I don't have 10,000, I don't have whatever, it's okay. Don't panic. The good, coolest thing about indie publishing is that you have a lot of opportunities to continue to build and continue to do more things. But just as a pure and simple example of how this works, you can have a traditional publisher, a big traditional publisher that's going to send out 10,000 galley copies prior to a launch. They're going to send that author to events all over the place. They're going to put that author up on stages in front of people. They're going to send them to places where they sign and give print copies of that book, because they know and understand that the key to a successful book launch is buzz, is word of mouth marketing, is people wanting this book because everybody else is reading it. That's why 50 Shades of Grey was so popular, was because everybody was talking about it. It was shocking, it was new, it was different. Harry Potter, Star Wars, whatever you can think of that's big and has a lot of buzz around it, it's because everybody's talking about it. That's how you sell lots and lots and lots of books. And a lot of this comes back from efforts that are made long before you actually launch your book. Because if you're thinking about trying to get it reviewed as an editorial review, think big, like Wall Street Journal or New York Times or Kirkus or any of those places that send out reviews to a massive audience of book buyers, retailers, and readers. They don't want yesterday's news. They want what's new and what people haven't already bought yet. So, as you're building that audience, you should do your best to be building it as massively as you can prior to your launch, because that is your best window of opportunity. But as I said, if you've already launched, there are ways that you can still capitalize on continuing to grow and provide benefit to your audience. Okay. The sad part is that as we've watched all of these launches and as we've seen what has happened, first of all, you cannot base your audience on your Facebook page likes, okay? Because sometimes people like your page because you posted a really funny meme one day that really has nothing to do with anything that you're doing, right? So just because you have followers on your Facebook page does not necessarily mean that they're interested in buying your book. So that's one of the reasons why when you're trying to get in touch with agents and get your book pitched out into the world, like, they are going to take a good hard look at your audience size, and it's more than just your Facebook page or your Instagram account, unless you can show a very engaged audience and clicks, and you can see all those kinds of things happening. What we have seen is that if you collect 1,000 people on your email list for an advanced review copy, you're lucky if you get between 50 to 200 of those people to actually leave a review. There are ways to increase that number. There are ways to make that work hard, but it does take work. It takes consistent engagement with them. It takes reminders. It takes doing the work to get them there. If your book is just super book, you might get a much higher conversion rate than that. And if your audience has really built this know, like, and trust factor, and they're really in it to help you win it, then they're much more likely to do that. But anybody who has already launched a book, and has spent any time at all trying to get people to leave reviews knows how hard this is, which is why it's so important to take advantage of other tools than just Amazon, using places like Goodreads and BookBubs and all these other places out there that you can, NetGalley, all these other places that you can get your book into the hands of readers, librarians, retailers, all of those things, who are people that are actually going to leave reviews, that you're going to book clubs and book bloggers and reviewers and finding all of those things. So as I mentioned, none of this is hard stuff. Once you've found your right audience and you know what kind of stuff they enjoy and they like and what they talk about and where they're at, like, it becomes a lot more natural to get in front of them and to create relationships and do all of these things. But it is consistent work that needs to be carried out through a plan. So you don't have this know, like, and trust factor as a brand new author. You're not Stephen King or Toni Morrison or J.K. Rowling or E.L. James. And you, as I mentioned before, one of the easiest and least icky sales tactics out there is just to give people a PDF copy of your book. It's going to help you. It's going to help people get reviews. It's going to help all kinds of things. It's going to build word of mouth marketing. So we've found in the launches that I've looked at numbers wise, you can expect out of your audience one out of 25 people or less of your audience to actually buy your book. So this is where some more traditional marketing methods do apply to across the board. The 7 to as much as 21 touch rule applies. So what that means is that somebody needs to see about you, hear about you, try something from you, hear from you, hear your name, whatever, 7 times before they feel like, okay, this is something I should invest in. This is where I should spend my money. You have to have a way for people to get to know you. So through giving away your book, through building that audience, you are building a network of cheerleaders who then go and tell all of their friends and family about you. And this is massive, but you have to know who they are. So step 1, we're still in. You have to know who they are. You have to know where they are, and you have to spend that time to build that relationship with them so that they're willing to do that. I'm sure you've seen your friends ask on Facebook sometime, and this is probably going to happen a lot now that we're all at home for an indefinite amount of time, saying, what are some good books? What are some good Netflix shows? What are some whatever? Like, people want to hear from their friends. So if you have given your book out to a bunch of people and they read your book and they loved it, and somebody's like, okay, everybody, I've got a lot of time on my hands and a lot of baking tools I've never used. What is your favorite baking book? What's your favorite recipe place? Where can you go? Now all of a sudden, maybe you shared your cookbook or some free recipes or a free trial or whatever it is with a whole bunch of people, and somebody in the audience is like, I know exactly where you need to go. You need to either go buy this book right now, is the best thing I've ever seen, or you need to go to their website where hopefully that author is providing continued value and content by also posting things on their website or through their email list or other places like that where people are of interest to you. So I mentioned, hi, it's me, I have ADHD. I'm going to take a sip of my water really quickly. Okay. Okay, so blanket marketing doesn't work. It never has, it never will. It just does not work. So if you think to yourself that I'm just going to publish my book and then I'm just going to spam the whole world with it and people are going to buy, you're wrong. What you're going to do is you're going to lose friends and family, and you're going to lose followers, because nobody likes that. It's gross. As an example, if all I was to do was to pop onto the Women in Publishing Summit page and say, I'm selling the All Access Pass, I'm selling the All Access Pass, I'm selling the All Access Pass, and that's all you heard from me, you would have never followed anything, never showed up to anything, never whatever. Like, we did market it and we tried to share the benefits of it, but we also shared a lot of free value along the way to get that know, like, and trust factor and let you know, hey, this is something we're doing. It's the same with your book marketing. So this book, Hi, It's Me, I Have ADHD, fantastic book. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story behind it, because it encompasses a lot of what we've been talking about so far. I met Caitlin Mabry a few years ago. I think she found my Write Publish Sell group or something like that. And she came into the group and she was asking some questions about publishing her book. We hopped on a call. She told me that she was thinking about using one of these big book publisher agencies. Um, and she asked me some questions about it. I gave her my honest feedback. She asked me if she should purchase their marketing plan. And my words to her then were, I'm concerned that they are blanket marketing. I'm concerned that all this stuff that they're telling you, they're going to put you on their social media. They're going to send your book out to their email list, all of these things. I'm concerned that they don't know anything about your target audience and are just going to be blanket marketing your book out to all of their followers, anybody who's on their social media. And she heard me and she was like, okay, but they're doing all this stuff. I'm going to go with it. So she did. She was very disappointed, and they did exactly what I said they were going to do. They priced her book too high. Her keywords and categories were not optimized to her target audience, and none of the marketing that they were doing was specific to her audience. And so she wound up coming back to me. I love this book so much because I have a child with ADHD, and she had sent us a copy, and I read it to him. And the first question out of his mouth was, Mommy, did the writer of this book have ADHD? And I said, yes, she did. And he said, I can tell because he basically said it speaks to me. So Caitlin eventually came back to me, and she was like, I would really like to try and republish this book through Purple Butterfly Press. And I said, all right, let's do it. We're going to relaunch this book and see if we can do it differently. So what we did was we followed everything that I've been telling you so far. We said, who do you need to get in front of? You need, yes, the readers, the target of the book itself are children with ADHD. They're the ones who want to read the book. But the people who needed to be targeted to was their parents, their teachers, the people who are going to buy that book, but also use that book to help their child. So we brought in our Instagram strategists because we know from doing our research that moms, homeschooling moms, teachers, guidance counselors, all of those are very active and engaged on Instagram. And we put together a strategy for Caitlin to go out and to build that network and to build those things and to be in front of that audience and to provide value to them. And to her credit, if it had stopped right there, just with our strategy and following some people on Facebook and using some hashtags, her launch would have never gone off the way that it did. But to Caitlin's credit, she took it to the next step. She did what our Instagram strategist told her to do. She started reading her book live to her community. She started sharing other tips and information related to ADHD. She provided, value to that audience. She knew who she was speaking to very, very well. She provided them value. And would you believe that with her relaunch, we tripled the sales of her initial launch plus the year or however long it was out there. So, like I said at the beginning, if you've already done this and you didn't do it right, the sky has not fallen. There are opportunities to start and to start where you are exactly today, and to start talking to the right people and making sure that you're doing the things that you need to do to get your book to where it needs to be. Okay. All right. I got to speed up a little bit here. We're never going to make it through all of this. Again, I will be sending out the slides so you can go through this. Okay. So you must, if you're going to be successful at this, you have to stop thinking just like an author. I hear so many people say, I just want to write a book, or I'm just building my business and I need this book as a tool, or I'm just, doing a passion project. And if you are just doing that, that's great. If you have expectations of sales and growth and making an earning through the sale of your book and the other things that will come from that, then you have to think like a publisher. You have to think like an entrepreneur, a marketer, a publicist, a reader, and the buyer of the book. So no one said that just because publishing a book was easy, which is what they say now, that anybody can self-publish a book. Anybody can put a book on Amazon. And it's true, anybody can. Does not mean it's going to be successful or good or look right or have the right people going to it. You have to research the audience. You have to show them you care about them as your readers, not just as someone who buy your book. And start early, engage early, and don't be gross. Raise up your readers with you as a new author. You have this opportunity to grow them together, to get their input, to get their feedback, to help, ask questions and do all those things that they love to do. Okay, we made it to number 3. Woo! It's the long game, just like this webinar. All the cliches. It's not a sprint. It is a marathon. If you stop marketing your book the day the book launch ends, then the week that your book launched will be the last time you see sales. I wish I was joking about that. But I've just seen it too many times. Like, you might, if you've got some other stuff, some podcasts that are in the works, some other things that are out there trickling out, some reviewers who left a later review, like you might see a sale or two. But if you stop marketing when your book publishes, you're done. Okay. As I say with everything, there are exceptions to every single rule. If by some chance in that marketing window, somebody famous picked it up and started tweeting about it and all that kind of stuff, then you're going to get that information, right? You're going to get that bump from it. But I can tell you, and launching a book is hard work. So a lot of times people are exhausted and they just want to take a break from it for a while. So build that into your plan. Know that you need a break for about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it is, after doing all the things to get your book launched. And then make sure that you have a mini launch thing a little bit longer, and that you can go back and do these things over and again later. But know that for the length of the time that you want this book to have sales, and you're going to have to continue marketing. The other thing about this is that you can't do a one and done book and expect to be a famous author and to make a living from your book. If you're somebody famous, if you've done something incredible, if your book is kind of the thing that launches your platform to be a motivational speaker, then that's one avenue that one book might be enough. If you developed the cure to coronavirus and you wrote a book about it, you probably never have to write another book. You're going to have that stage literally set for you to go speaking and doing all of those things. That's kind of the exception. There's no other exception to that rule that I can think of. Every author who is famous is continuing to put stuff out there, do more books, create more content, continue to provide value and information, or you just become old news. This cat's bored. That's a bored expression. Look at Danielle Steel as an example. I think of Danielle Steel because when I was in my late teens, early teens, whenever, I read every book that Danielle Steel published, and a new one would come out, I'd read it. They'd make a movie about one of them. Some of these Wanderlust, some of these, remember the movies that they made, but if she had stopped after her first or second or third book, nobody would know who Danielle Steel is anymore. But she has continued to put them out, and guess what? Her backlist continues to sell books. This is where passive revenue comes from with authors. It's the backlist, so that when somebody finds your 7th book and then they're like, oh my gosh, they've written all these other books, and they go back and they buy all those other books. So can you have success with one book? Yes. But you need to have a plan on what that success looks like. And it's probably not going to be just from book sales. So if you're not already thinking about your next book, particularly if you write in a genre where your audience expects something more, fantasy, for example, a lot of readers expect series. A lot of readers expect that if you put out the first one, there's going to be a second and a third one coming not long after that. Romance, if you develop a following of romance fans, they're going to want another book coming, another book coming, another book coming. Children's books, again, it depends on the content. I know that that Caitlin, who did Hi, It's Me, I Have ADHD, she works with children who have anxiety and other issues as well. So she has a whole series of books planned out. So this was ADHD. The next one's going to talk about anxiety. The next one's going to talk about something else. You should be thinking forward on what you're going to be doing. All right, let's take a step back and think about the baking book that I mentioned earlier. So if you're writing a book about baking, that might be the only book that you ever write. So an example would be Shelley that I mentioned and her Dinner for $1 book. That Dinner for $1 might be the only big book that she does. I know that's not true because I know she's just started put together a book, an ebook that's like how you can batch make meals and have a bunch of food for several weeks and not have to spend a lot of time cooking, right? But she's not back to the races to write as many books as she can. She's using this book and she's using the skill set that this book teaches to get out in front of her target audience and to go speaking in front of them and to teach her system to them. So her system, her money-making, her business isn't the book. The book is one tool of that business. Her business is teaching people how to save money on their groceries, how to put dinner on the table in 15 minutes or less, and how to do it with healthy, clean foods. And everything she does is geared around that. So there are, you don't have to think, oh my gosh, I only have one yoga book in me. How am I going to write a series of books? So, you have to think about what you're doing and what other opportunities you have going on when you're thinking about the longevity. Okay. It's very rare. We don't want people to have one-hit wonders. I was up late doing these slides, so I'm not really sure now why I grabbed one on. Let me read this. That one episode of SpongeBob when he procrastinates writing his essay and is only capable of writing the word "the" and then burns his house down. That basically sums up my life. So it's that thing where you put everything, you procrastinate, you're only doing this one little thing, you're not doing the work, and then all of a sudden it's time and you haven't done anything, and then you go crazy is kind of the thing. Like, I don't know, this was a late night slide, so let's just go with that. Like, you don't want to just put out one thing, one time, be done, and expect it to be the thing. If you're planning on making earning around your writing. I want to talk about an email that I got from someone who's asked me to give them some feedback on a couple of quotes that they've gotten from marketing professionals. And she's just written her first fantasy book. And she's got 2 quotes from 2 different marketing companies that want to do like a really expensive push towards launch and run her a 2-week pre-order campaign. And they're going to do this and that. And as I looked at it, her question to me was, will I ever make the money back from this? Will I ever be able to sell enough books to recuperate that $3,000 investment? And the honest truth right now, with only knowing that she doesn't have an audience and she's going to pay a cookie cutter, maybe pay this cookie cutter marketing agency who's going to do the same thing. They're going to put their book out to a generic list. They're going to do a generic marketing campaign. And they're not doing anything to build her audience, to make sure she's focused in front of the right people and growing that. The answer is no. It's just one book that's taken her 3.5 years to write. It's a fantasy book. They're going to expect something more. Like, when's the next book coming out? What else are you going to be able to give to them? And the odds are of an audience of, well, I can give you some straight numbers. We saw an audience, one launched to a woman who had about 5,000 followers on her Facebook feed, and she sold about 100 books in her first month of launch. We had another woman who had an email list of 15,000 and a very engaged Facebook group of about 45,000. And she continues to sell hundreds of books every month. And her first month, she sold thousands of books. It's a numbers game. And you can't just come out the gate last minute with no plan and only one thing and expect that you're going to be successful with it. And that's tough love, I know, because you've spent time and energy and passion and blood, sweat, and tears to create this one amazing book. And it probably is amazing. But if nobody knows about it, and if there's no way for you to continue building on that, it's just gonna stop. And you're going to be frustrated. All right. So those are the 3 main things then, making sure that you know your audience, making sure that you're building relationships and building that audience so that they can support you and help you grow in sales, in audience growth, and all of those things, making sure that you are playing the long game and making sure that you are that you are playing the numbers game and being smart about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and continuing to grow all of those things. Some basic tools that you have to have as an author these days. You must have an email list. You must be using an email CRM or an email tool like MailChimp or MailerLite or ConvertKit or ActiveCampaign or any of those things. One, because it goes against the spam can laws to just email people out of your Gmail account. They have to have the opportunity to subscribe, unsubscribe, get off your list, mark you as spam, whatever they want to do. And if you're just emailing them out of your email account, you can get in a lot of trouble, especially with anybody who complies with GDPR rules. Like, there's a lot of trouble you can get into. So you have to have that. You should have a basic website. You can simply be following the book buyer's path, which I'm going to talk about in a second, a very, very simple website for authors, or you can be doing something much more complicated like Shelley's example or Caitlin's example with the ADHD, where she's blogging and she's bringing in other tools and she's providing other resources, and her book is one component of that, but it's part of her overall website. And then you have to have a place for people to follow you so that they can share your content. You have to be active on some level of social media. You just have to these days. And you need to pick the right place on social media. So if all your fans, all your people, all your target audience are on Facebook, then that's where you should put your efforts, even if you don't like Facebook. If everybody's on Instagram, you should be on Instagram. And if you don't know how to use it, then you should invest in someone at least getting you set up and teaching you the basics of it so that you can be successful. And you need to have a content creation strategy. This strategy is going to depend on so many things: your audience, what they want and what they need, your overall goals with your book, the genre of your book. Is this content strategy, how are you doing it? Are you doing it on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or through blog posts or a mixture of both, and all of that stuff? This content strategy, creation strategy, is going to be a key to how you continue bringing the right people to you. So I mentioned the book buyer's path a minute ago, and this is a really a cool idea that Carissa McGrath founded in the Readers on Demand workshop, which now is part of my enterprise of programs. So the idea is, if you are not doing all those other things, if you are doing everything solely around being a writer and being an author and selling your books, then your website should be focused on the book buyer and the path that they take when they buy a book. So, for example, if you go to a bookstore and you want to read a book about sisterhood and writing and, women in publishing and all that kind of stuff, and you go over to the appropriate section and you're looking at all the books and you find one that looks interesting to you, you pick it up off the shelf, you look at the cover, okay, it looks good. You read the back. You might check out some of the stuff like the price. If you're still interested, you might flip it open. And if you really like it, you're going to put it in your cart and you're going to go to the front of the store and you're going to purchase it. But you might not be buying that day. So you might walk around and look at some different things. Maybe there's a postcard or a flyer or something, So on your website, if they're not ready to buy, because like we said, when they come to your website, it's not quite the same as walking into a bookstore, because there they already went with the intent to buy. But if they found your website by something, they followed an ad you ran or something like that, they might just want some more information. So if you're able to provide them, lead them to a way that they can get more information, either a free download of your full book, or if you're already published and are no longer giving it away for full, then a couple sample chapters, or maybe a PDF of like your favorite grocery stores that always run good sales, or your favorite tools to use for baking, or whatever it is, your top 10 children's books ever about ADHD, whatever it is of interest to your target audience. You're going to have a way for them to enter in their email, get that, whatever it is that you promised them, and enter into an email sequence where you can grow their like and trust. That's one way to do it. If you are obviously building a business, doing all kinds of other things, then your website's probably going to be more complicated. Your content strategy is going to be more complicated. You're going to be doing podcasts and webinars and showing up on summits and doing all these things. So the thing is, I cannot tell you right now in this group exactly how to market your book. I do not ever take a cookie cutter approach. I think that there are some things that work for everyone. Those 3 things that I just told you about: knowing your target audience, getting in front of them and growing that audience, building an email list, and doing consistent actions over time that meet your strategy, which is defined by your goals and what you're trying to achieve. If you don't know how to start that process, you have to start with thinking like you are the reader, okay? Who is your book for? Who is your book helping? Who wants to read your book and why? What pain point are you solving? If it's a self-help, how are you trying to achieve something? How are you, answering a question? How are you entertaining them? How do you fit in the scope of who's buying it? Study the comp titles, competition. See what other people in your genre are doing and how they're doing it. Follow them, mimic them. Don't steal their content, but watch what they're doing and try to do those same things. You have to start there. That's where you start, is knowing who your book is for so clearly that if I ask you right now, what's your book about and who's it for? Or just what's your book about? You should be able to give me an elevator pitch in like 30 seconds. I write a book that helps people who want to start writing a book and they don't know where to start. And it gives them the tools and the resources. It's called Ditch the Fear and Just Write It. And they will have a short little outline and everything they need to know to get started so that they can get over that hump of not knowing where to start. That's more than a 30-second one. But, it's very clear. Like, I know that my audience is women who want to make an impact in the world, and they want to do it through a book, and they don't know where to start, period. Okay. So then provide value to that audience, solicit their help in creating buzz, get them to share about it, get them to do things, get them involved in the process, use tools that help you. And then this is where it gets fun, because you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You can test out some things and say, you know what, I really enjoy going live on Instagram and doing Insta stories and sharing all of this stuff every single day. And that's what I'm going to spend all my time doing. I'm going to tell them about my day. I'm going to give this. I'm going to tell them this suggestion. I'm going to, or you can use other tools that are out there. There's some big tools, like Publish was one of our major sponsors. We talked about them a lot. They have this cool thing called a book bubble, where you can take a little snippet of an excerpt from your book, and then you can write an insight as to why you wrote that and what was going on, or what was happening with the character, or what the background was, or whatever. And then you blast it out, and people see the cover, and they see your insight, and they see your excerpt, and then they can follow you. And there's Goodreads, there's BookBubs, there's NetGalley. There are all these tools out there if you search and spend some time. And they're not just marketing tools, they're also networking tools. They're also like how to find your audience tools. If you go on to Goodreads and you find other books that are like yours and see who's reading them and what they're saying about them and what forums those people are in, and make friends with them and answer questions and create that. It does take time. Some efforts take way more time than others. But you can break it into small chunks so that it doesn't seem so huge. You can find other authors who write in your same genre and share with each other, do newsletter swaps, run giveaways, promote each other, write up a blurb about 5 of your favorite books that other authors in your genre are writing. Again, you're providing value to your audience. You can do book clubs. I want to talk about my friend Casey, my author Casey, who published with Chrysalis Press. She has this thing where she'll do virtual or in person. So if somebody in California, well, they're all going to be virtual right now, right? But she'll reach out to people and she'll say, hey, I've got this cool wine glass that I painted with a butterfly on it that matches the book. It's really cool. If you'll host a book club, I'll give you this as my host. And she says, I'll come in live. I can do virtual. I can attend live. I'll come in and answer her questions. Excuse me. She's developed the book club answers. Like if you're writing a book and you're not adding the book club stuff in there, or you're doing a children's book and you're not adding in teacher lesson plans, those are automatic things that you can do that will do all of these things for you and help you in that process. So there's no one specific approach that I can tell every single one of you you have to do, except for know who you're trying to get in front of, do your research. You just have to do the research. And the first way you can start is by thinking of yourself as the reader and what it is that you're trying to help people achieve, and then go find out like what things they're searching for and all of those things. You have to grow that audience, and you have to start early and be consistent and do the long game. This comes from a strategy. And because we're running over, I'm not going to go through all of the examples, but I was going to tell you about 3 authors that I worked with, T, L, and M. And basically, in a nutshell, they didn't want to market, so they didn't. They spent years writing their books and invested a lot of money into the editing and the layout and the marketing, not the marketing, all the other things. And then when it came time to publish their book, they did nothing. They didn't want to market. They didn't want to put themselves out in front of it. They didn't want to show up at authors' things. They didn't want to do anything. And of those, one of them sold 0 books to this date. The only copy that was bought was by me because he was my client and I wanted to support him. And the other, I would say, the other 2 authors, the last time I checked in, have sold less than 10 in 2 to 3 years. That's not where you want to be. You can come back from a sad start. We'll put it that way. You can come back. You can get on board. You can start doing this. All right. So I'm going to talk about some ways that I can help you. If you have been following the Women in Publishing Summit, I've been talking about WIP School. That is my big flagship opportunity that I offer. But you know what? I wanted to make sure that, especially where we are sitting right now with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear and a lot of what's going to happen, and oh my gosh, there are 2 things that are happening. One, you may have a lot of time on your hands, and doing an intense course is exactly right for you right now. But you might be nervous about a lot of things that are happening. So I wanted to provide a layer of opportunities. So I'm going to tell you about the WIP School first. It is an investment, and it is a time investment as well. But hang on for a second, because if this is not your thing, I've got some other things following along here that may be in it for you. What is WIP School? WIP School is kind of like my play on words here. It's kind of similar to Marie Forleo's B School, which is what she launches every year. It's a business to business kind of thing. So I thought that was kind of cute, WIP School. But also, a lot of authors often talk about WIP, work in progress, and women in publishing. So it all, kind of play on that. It is a 6-month program of like intense action steps, implementation, coaching, and guidance in a nutshell. We go through all of these things. There is also bonuses that are included in the program that that will help you do all of these things as well. Okay. It's going to be coaching, consulting, live Zoom training. You're going to be getting templates and swipe copy. There will be online training. There will be live training. There will be implementation time, and the team and I are going to help you do this. It's going to teach you everything that you need basically to successfully publish, to make sure that you're using the right team members, to figure out all of these things. And it's kind of cut off on the bottom of my screen there, but you can go to womeninpublishingsummit.com/marketing-help. And I'm going to put that thing in there. I can't comment on here. So, swipe copy is basically saying, here's what your email sequence should include. I am going to provide the swipe copy to you so that you can take this email template. You can literally swipe it. You copy and paste it into your own social media, into your own email sequence, into all of that stuff. And you just change out the things that make sense to you. So it might say, paragraph 1, talk a little bit about why you wrote your book. So obviously you cannot just pick it up and copy and paste it, because swipe copy is meant to be generic enough that it can be swiped by lots of different people, but it's going to point you in the right direction so that it just gets you starting faster. So templates, swipe, all the things to save you time and energy from trying to figure it out yourself. So like I said at the very beginning, I've made a lot of investments. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've made a lot of things happen. And my goal is to be able to help people not make all of those mistakes that I did. Okay. And I'm just going to put this link in here. So hopefully that answers the questions on Swipe. Okay. So then the team will be there with me. So you saw me talking about, Nancy and Raywin and web tech stuff and setting up your website. And it's like, it's all the things that I talked about. Number one, trying to identify and find your target audience. Number two, how do you get in front of them? Number three, how do you set up your strategy and create a strategy that's going to be effective to them, and so on and so forth. So that's really, we focus a lot on audience growth, on preparing yourself for a successful launch, on building that, and on putting the plans in place to make sure it is there to help you through. Okay. All right. Then next, if this is not now, so this is going to be a significant time investment and monetary investment. We're giving you everything we've got. It's not going to be $47, right? So I do want you to know that there are 2 price points for this particular program for the 6 months, and it starts at $3K. So I don't want anybody to be surprised about that. For that matter, I have a, on the website link that I just gave you, womeninpublishingsummit.com/marketing-help. There is a place that if you are interested in this, if you feel like it's the next right thing for you to do, if you want to ask questions and get more information, you can go get on a phone call with me so that I can answer all your questions and go over it in more details. Then it's also got a big bonus, which is called the Readers on Demand workshop. I talked about the book buyer's path. Readers on Demand is how to set up that book buyer's path, how to really get that. And that's going to be a bonus. This is a new program to me that I acquired from another marketing genius who set up this entire program. And because it's in beta, I'm redoing the training. I'm adding some things. I'm freshening it up a little bit, but it is the full system for setting up your website, to include a website template that's been designed specifically for authors to bring people in through the book buyer's path, and how to set up your email sequence, the tools to do it, the swipe copy for your email sequence, the exact, like, everything, upload straight to your CRM and set it up and support with all of that. How to run Facebook ads to continue sending traffic to your website so that you have people, the right target audience coming to you, how to find that target, all of those things. Excuse me. That is what the Readers on Demand workshop is. When Carissa was running this, she ran it live as a 6-month program as well, I believe, and it was an investment of $5,200 to join this program. So we are offering it as a beta bonus as part of the WIP school, but also it's going to be its own thing for people to do the self-paced version of it. And we are selling it, the self-paced version, only for this launch at $497. You're not going to get the hands-on, like, support, like, in there monitoring everything you're doing, but you are going to get the templates that I talked about, how to load it to your website, and the training to do it. And the reason we are cut the price so low is because right now we are in that beta period where it's a new program to us. We're running it through, making sure that it is all the kinks are worked out. I've got to recreate all the videos. So, like, if you were to purchase the course today, you get instant access to it right now today. If you go to that page that I just gave you and click on the thing, you can buy it right now. And it's going to have all the it will exist exactly as it existed when Carissa sold it to me. So all the videos are Carissa, content's hers. She did an amazing job with it. And as we go through the program, I will be swapping out that content, and you will start seeing me instead of her. So because it's beta, that's why we're giving it at that price this time. It's an incredible program, and it's really cool, but I want to be very clear on who the Readers on Demand is for. This is not necessarily the right path. This particular, okay, big picture, the program is right on. How you set up the website, though, for the book buyer's path in this particular thing is geared mostly towards people who are writing only. Like they are trying to build their business as an author. So if that's the only thing you're doing, if you can still add on to it, but like this is the perfect setup for somebody who is just focusing on books. The perfect website setup, the perfect email sequence, the perfect Facebook ads, all of that things go right to that. So that's why it's a bonus inside of the WIP school, because it's still going to give templates and tools that everybody can use, but you might want to do a little bit of a setup of how your website is laid out if you're also running podcasts and doing content creation and blogging and all kinds of other things. So I can definitely explain that a little bit more. You can look at what is involved if you go to womeninpublishingsummit.com/marketing-help, and it will break down exactly what's covered in the Readers on Demand workshop. But it's an incredible opportunity to get in right now while it's only $4.97 and still get access to all of the same content. And I will be holding a monthly Q&A session for people to come in who buy the self-paced version, for them to come in and ask questions of me, because I'm sure you'll need some help along the way. So the two of these elements together is an incredible tool for any author who is trying to grow their author business, really learn the full spectrum of marketing, have that plan in place from early on, and be strategically taking action steps all the way along to grow their platform, bring people to their website, get people on their email list, grow their email list, and so on and so forth. Just some more details on the program: step-by-step live training, recorded training and resources, access to my team for help, guest experts. We have a guest, at least one, if not two, guest experts lined up to come in and speak to us every month on topics like legal issues for you as a business owner, what kind of things you need to have on your website, like your privacy policy and all those things that you don't think about. So we're really looking at being an author as a full picture thing: growing your author business, growing your marketing platform, marketing, getting your book produced properly. We'll have people come in to talk about mindset, because that continues to be an issue, accounting, PR, writing, how to write better and grow that, the business side. So you'll be able to participate in Q&As, in office hours, in live training, in implementation time, in hot seats, which means that when we come into the training, like, you would be the one sitting there receiving all the information from me. Feedback, like you would be asking specific to, okay, this is my book, this is what I'm trying to do. And we would go back and forth doing a live coaching session basically for everybody. When we finish this, you're going to have your marketing strategy, a publishing plan for your next book if you've already finished the first book, project management plan to carry out all of this stuff, your website, your social media and launch strategies, Facebook ads, your email CRM, an email sequence. And if you are in the process still of writing your book, you're going to be well in that process, and probably on pre-order. Like I said, this is not the program for everyone. Because of all of this stuff, it is a significant investment, and of not just financial, but of time. But I can guarantee you that when you come out the other end, you're going to be much, much farther ahead. You will not have wasted countless hours of time trying to figure it all out on your own. And you won't be spending money on things that you don't need, which is another problem that we often see with people in marketing, is that they're sold something. All right. So yes, it is expensive. It's an investment. Absolutely. Just so you know, I'm teaching you everything that I have spent almost $300,000 learning. So yes, doing this, building in your own business, it is an investment. That's why I want to make sure that the right people are coming in that are able to make that investment in both time and money. And if you can't make that investment, then keep scrolling through here with me, because we have other resources for you at womeninpublishingsummit.com/marketing-help. And if you are interested, then schedule that call. I don't have time. This is a big, big thing. That's not probably going to be an excuse for the next few weeks, because we're going to have nothing but time if none of us can leave our houses. So this is a great time to start rolling in to taking your author business seriously and investing the energy, the time, and the motions in it. So you need help with your plan, with your deadlines to motivate you, with some skin in the game, some accountability support, all of those types of things. Okay, if you're thinking, I don't need a publishing plan, I already know how to publish, I've learned this all by myself, I've got that part down, I've already got, all these other things happening, I don't need to know how to find an editor, I don't need to know how to build my author business, I'm doing it, I have privacy, whatever, I've got my accounting down, I only want the marketing support. So that's where Readers on Demand is really going to come in as a great option. So this one, again, is for the person who is looking to build their author business only. You need a website and a way to grow that email list, to sell more books, to do that stuff, and you are focused on your book primarily. I feel like that's the best place for this start. That doesn't mean that you can't then also prepare yourself for future launches, for adding on other things. This is going to give you the core starting place to make sure that you have the website set up, the email list set up, an active email sequence, and Facebook ads and other marketing opportunities that are going to feed people to your website, the right people to your website, and continue to bring and grow that audience. I know that when people do this, when they actually do the work, when they follow the plan, they see great success. And I didn't add in the testimonials, but I can tell you that we had a very successful group through the last round of the program, and we have tweaked it and added to it and made it even better since then. And you're going to see results if you're willing to do the work, but I cannot want it more than you do. That's the thing. If you do what we tell you to do, if you go through the stuff and you need help, we're going to help you get there. This is one of those times that I can truly tell you, if you build it, they will come, but you have to build it. Okay, so this is where you go to find out more about these different programs, to schedule a 15-minute call if you want to learn more about it. Then I'll also, if neither of those are within your pricing strategy, I have a $47 mini course. I've dropped the pricing on almost all of my courses because of what's happening right now and the uncertainty. So I dropped it down to $47. It's a mini course with sample marketing strategies, how to create your strategy, how to implement it, and interviews with people who are doing lots of great things, giving great advice. All kinds of good stuff in there, what type of email CRM you should be using, and some bonus tutorials on that, lots of great things. Again, you can also find a link for more information at that same page. So what are you going to do? Hopefully, even if you don't take advantage of any of the additional things I am offering you, you learned a lot of things that you need to start working on today. All right, I'm going to pop back over to the Facebook page and see if I can see if there are questions here. I know that I have been talking and talking and talking, and thank you for those of you who hung out with me despite the technological issues that we had. Okay. CJ says, I like to buy 99-cent books, and if I like the author, I will buy their other books. Yes, exactly. Strategies like that, pricing strategies. Where do you start? How do you determine if your book should be 99 cents or $4.99 or $12.99 or whatever it is? So how do you do those things? Do I have an affiliate option available? Do you mean, I'm assuming you mean, CJ, am I allowing people to sign up as an affiliate to promote the program? I have not set one up yet, but it is definitely something, if people are interested in, I can look at doing. So send me an email, CJ, at info@writepublishsell.co or support@womeninpublishingsummit.com, whichever email you're getting emails from us. Reply to that and I will let you know. And Natasha Carlo, you can always go back in and access it, because these are, once you have joined the program, you have access to the materials for as long as you would like. My first book is almost ready for publication. Tony, you want to start your email list yesterday. Do you want a website? Yeah, you should have had one already. There's no, like, this is the thing. If you don't already, don't freak out. Start where you are right now and start building that up. But it's never too soon to start marketing, because I cannot impress you upon you enough how hard it is to build a community, an email list, a following, and anything. Like, and if you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't even finished, I just am starting my very first book, what on earth am I supposed to do to attract people to my website? So that's a great question. So at that point in time, if your book isn't done, you can't possibly give away the entire book, right? So there's two ways that you can do this. You can put a coming soon and get a landing page up on your website and do a mock cover. If you don't have a final cover yet, you can, this is the only time I encourage people to use Canva for a cover, is you can go to Canva and they have lots of template covers, and you can create a mock cover that you can use for marketing up until you have a professionally designed cover. And you can put the image of your cover, and you can put the description of the book and who it's for and who's gonna need it and want it and love it, and invite them to sign up. If you don't have anything that you can give them, invite them to sign up to be notified when your book is ready for either pre-order or for advanced review, or however you want to set it up. So that's what we do when we are first marketing a brand new book, starting to work with an author. We will just set up a simple landing page and say, here's my book, here's who it's going to be for, get on my list so that I can notify you as soon as it's ready. Or if depending on what your topic is, maybe you're a children's book writer and you have some coloring pages or some images that you've already created, you can say, download some of my fun images, my coloring pages. If you're writing on topics of interest to sorry, just totally lost my train of thought. There are lots of other things that you can give that are samples that aren't that full book, that are relevant to your book. So while you're waiting for my book on, oh, by the way, I just put my book on pre-order today, on 99 cents on Amazon, for real. I'm not kidding you. Ditch the fear and just market it. So, I don't have anything for them yet because I haven't finished writing it. But there are other things that I can put for people to get on my email list. I can say, download my slides on marketing tips and how to get started, or even better, you want it to be simple, download my 1-page PDF on my 5 best tips for getting started with your book marketing, those types of things. So there are always, if you're writing fiction, write a short story and share that. Or you can say, learn about my characters in this book, or learn about why I set the book in Wyoming. Or, you have to think like the reader. What is it that the reader is going to want? What is relevant to them? And what can you create relatively easily that's not going to take away all your time from writing your book and trying to finish that, right? So there's very, very easy ways to do that. Okay. All right, CJ, just send us an email and we will work on figuring all of that out. Okay. That looks like all the questions that I can see on here. The comments don't go back all the way. Let me see if there was anything up here. Huh. That's weird. I guess when you get past a certain number of comments, they stop. Okay. If your target audience is not on Twitter, then don't spend time on Twitter. How would I know? Well, that's, Maritza, you have to do the work of figuring out where your target audience is. So the first thing you have to do is identify who they are and what type of stuff they're doing and what type of stuff they're engaging in. I can tell you right now that if you're writing a book about politics, they're on Twitter, because that's where people who love politics hang out. But there's ways to figure this out. There are research tools out there. You can go to Google and say, I don't know, you can look up, okay, so one of the best ways to figure out where they are is to figure out who else is an influencer in this particular topic. So if you could go to Google and you could say, what are the top Instagram accounts for teachers who work with special needs children, or whatever that, like, you have to know specifically who your audience is. What are the top podcasts for women who are into spirituality? Like, you can come up with anything and try and figure out. And what you do is you start looking, once you can identify the who, then you can start Googling for the where and the what and all of those things. So if you find, or you can start looking at other books, the comp titles, the competition titles in your genre, and you can say, okay, I'm writing a book about downhill skiing. Let me go to Amazon, see what books are doing great in downhill skiing. I'm going to follow that author. I'm going to go to her website. I'm going to go to her social media, and I'm going to see what's happening on her social media. If she doesn't have a Twitter account, or you go to her Twitter account and she has 3 followers and never shares anything, then at least for that particular author, Twitter's not where it's at. But if you go to her account and it's very engaged, it's very active, and people are using hashtags, you follow those hashtags. Like, there's a lot that goes into this, and a lot that goes into figuring it out. But you can start super simply just by thinking of the reader of your book and thinking of who is this book specifically for, and then get more specific. Get so specific. It is a cookbook for women who only cook with a crock pot on Saturdays. I mean, maybe that's too specific, but you get very, 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 very clear, and then you can back up a little bit. And then you start thinking to yourself, okay, so what are those women doing? Where are they looking for recipes? Where are they shopping for their food? What kinds of forums do they go to? Do they share recipes on Pinterest? Do they share recipes on Instagram? And then you go into those social media and you start looking for those again. So this is part of what we're doing this is a big part of what we're doing. The entire first month of the the WIP school is finding your audience and figuring out how to get in front of them and developing a strategy around that. And because it's not something that I can just tell you, well, if you write romance, then all of your fans are going to be on, pick something, Facebook, because that might be true for the large majority of them, but there might be other places where they're at too, or it might be very specific to the genre. I know for a fact that people who are doing things like cooking and children's books and things that are largely very graphic, that people like to see pictures of, or need like things specified out. Pinterest is a great place. You can pin an image and things like that. Children's books on Instagram. Like, you have to either spend some time brainstorming with somebody to figure that out, or going and doing the research for you. Okay, let's see. Strangers are giving me good feedback with my 2 books, but I realized that I need to get on with reaching out to people more and do talks for these books and my next one. Yes, absolutely. I mean, find as many people as you can and figure out how to get in front of them. Thank you, Maritza, for those endorsements. Huge. So we will be sending out the slides to everybody who registered. I'm going to have to figure out what to do about Friday, because I am quite concerned that Webinar Ninja will do the same thing. So I'm going to be looking into different options. But for now, you can go into the events tab and you can register through Webinar Ninja, and then we will send out an email on Friday morning to let you know where to go. If all else fails, if you can't find us, come to the Women in Publishing page, and we'll be here live on the page. Let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry. It is. This was not meant to be, Tina. I hear you on the small print. It would have looked much better on the original webinar thing. So let's see. CJ, I hope you write loads of books too. This is a great question, Helen, on how many successful authors have been written by ghostwriters. So pretty much anybody famous who has written a book has probably used a ghostwriter, or at least a collaborative writer, which is another way that you can do that. And, you know, I'm going to tell you that it has nothing to do with the ghostwriter. The success doesn't have to do with the ghostwriter, other than the fact that if you're not, like, if you have no time to write, or you are just a terrible writer and it's going to take years to go through editing, then, you know, you're going to get a book that's well written. That's one good thing. But the success almost always of every book comes down to numbers of audience, need for the book in the market, and marketing. So, you know, there are fantastic editors out there that can help anybody at any writing skill. There are fantastic courses out there. The whole process of writing and going to writing groups and getting feedback and doing revisions and improving and all of that stuff, like, you can go from something that is a hot mess when you started off and ends up being a really well written, well edited book without using a ghostwriter. But it's time and all of that and all of that. So, okay, let's see. Oh, we covered swipe copy. Thank you, Carol. Carol is a graduate of our program, and her book is going to publish in October, The Fish Dress. It's a kind of magical, mystical romance, and she can tell you all about how much longer the editing process takes than you originally expect. And even though she is we're publishing her book in October, like, we already have started with her website. We've already started with an email landing page. We've already got a book cover up. We are already starting all of these marketing things because she's a first-time author starting with no base. And if you want to have success with books, you have to have a base. Thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate that. Yeah, I want to keep people from spending a lot of money where they don't need to spend money. And, you know, we try to keep, we do keep our costs as absolutely low as they can be. We did try to do it in Zoom, Lorna. That wasn't working super well either. And I didn't know how, it only takes 100 people in there, and we had a lot more than 100 people registered. So I decided to go live on Facebook so that the people who weren't able to meet us in Zoom could still participate. Okay. All right. Well, shoot, it's 1 o'clock. That went a lot longer than I intended. I appreciate everybody and all your time. And again, we will send out the replay. Well, obviously it's on Facebook now, so you can just come to watch it anytime you want to by going to Women in Publishing and clicking on the videos. And then thank you. I appreciate that feedback. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about supporting each other through this process. We will email out the slides. Go ahead and register through the Webinar Ninja register tool for the next 2 upcoming webinars. If you're an all access pass holder, don't forget that we have a workshop on Thursday, a masterclass that's going to be your opportunity to come in and ask some specific questions and get some more guidance and information. And we will email everyone who is registered for the next 2 webinars with our plan of action. I mean, it's just unfortunate. Sometimes Webinar Ninja works beautifully and we have no issues whatsoever. But every once in a while, something really crazy like today happens, and we just roll with it and do what we got to do, right? Okay, let's see. All right, looks like we are good to go. And yeah, thanks everyone. We'll talk soon. Whatever you do, start promoting yourself somehow, some way. Do something every day. Small steps will get you there. Consistency, grow your audience. Don't be afraid to talk about yourself. The best way you can talk about yourself is to create things that people need and are of value. And if you're doing that, then it's super, super easy. Okay? Have a wonderful day. And now I got to figure out how to shut all of this